Let's move on to another issue which really dominated headlines this week. This was that cartoon, Bill Lake's cartoon. He spoke about critics saying they're sanctimonious Tweety birds having a tantrum. Was the reaction to this cartoon over the top, or was the cartoon itself just unacceptable?
I think the interesting thing about Bill Leak talking about freedom of speech, and the Australian editor came and defended him quite strongly, is why does he somehow have freedom of speech to make these cartoons, but when people engage robustly and criticise them and call them racist, including the Federal Minister for Indigenous Affairs, that's somehow beyond the pale, and how dare you engage in debate? You can't, if you're going to be a freedom of speech absolutist, you can't pick and choose. You can't say, well, I've got the freedom of speech to make racist cartoons, but no one's allowed to criticise me, and if you do, you're just a Twitter lynch mob. I think Bill Leak needs to either actually accept freedom of speech or accept that there's some boundaries that you just shouldn't push. I think the other issue with this cartoon is the freedom of speech someone like Bill Leak has in a national newspaper is quite different to what Indigenous communities have around the country, and I think it's not really a fair contest going on in that regard. And look, if there are issues to do with Northern Territory, obviously there's been a Royal Commission kicked off into juvenile justice there. Those are things that are worth putting a spotlight on. But I'm not sure a cartoon that shows a drunk Indigenous father forgetting the name of their child contributes anything to that debate. And
political cartoons are meant to provoke, but did he go too far?
No, I don't think so. I think he's the canary in the mine. I think we have for too long, and I think Marcia Langton and Warren Mundine got it spot on. He was only saying what Aboriginal leaders had come to him and said. The policeman wasn't white, the policeman was black. There was a huge division in the Indigenous community about this. This is why we had the intervention under Howard. Since the 1990s and before, we have got a toxic, venal problem with outback kids from Indigenous communities who are being sacrificed in the great name of Aboriginal land rights, whatever. And this is what Marcia said. Real leaders should call out to parents to lift their game. And Warren Mundine has been in and out of these detention centres, he's been in and out of these communities, and he says that the breakdown of Indigenous families is the reason this is happening. This guy is in detention. These areas and these places are toxic. I went to refugee centres for years. You put people in and contain them, they're toxic. But we're dealing with a guy who's not your nice little boy that delivers newspapers in the suburban streets. We're dealing with a fellow who had Alice Springs community terrified to leave their homes at night. He was put in that chair because he wanted to eat his mattress. The spitting, a woman died who was a custodian in a care centre from the spitting because she contracted a life-threatening disease. You have, at Mascot Airport, if there's lightning, they shut the whole place down. You can't even get off the plane because we're protecting the workers. What are we doing to protect the workers in these places? I think it's unfair for everybody in these situations to be put in this situation. But the problem is not at the detention centre. The problem, as Marcia Langton and Warren Mundine have made quite clear, it goes back over generations to the communities where children are abused, misused, and not even nurtured from the time they're 2 or 3.
In that case, how has Bill Leak's cartoon, though, from that perspective, been successful, given there's been so much backlash?
There's so much background. It's always the Twitterdom. It's always the intellectuals but it's not from the people who live in these communities.
I don't think that's right. I don't think you can just look at Marcia Langton, Noel Pearson, Warren Mundine, high-profile Indigenous leaders, and say that they speak on behalf of the entire Indigenous community. Like they're clearly.
No, they don't. The Indigenous community is divided.
Yeah, but I think that similarly, lots of Indigenous leaders and Indigenous people themselves would disagree with the concept that this issue is all due to abusive families. And of course there are problems with families, like there are in all communities, but what are the reasons those problems exist? And it's not just about the young man Dylan Vollner. Why are there 99% of juvenile detainees in the Northern Territory juvenile justice system Indigenous?
Because there's more of them in the problem.
But even if there are more of them, that are the problem.
Look,
why are they the problem?
I would love to solve the problem.
You're not going to solve the problem by saying Indigenous families are abusive. That's my point.
You have to state the case. And you have to face the case. We can't make them sacred cows. This is at the risk of having generations of young children not nurtured from the time virtually they're born, and often coming into the world with serious problems because of the way their parents
and being born into generational poverty is...
It's not just poverty. They are not poor in the material sense if they want to be. This is a problem of culture.
Has this cartoon succeeded in exactly what it was intended to do, to provoke debate?
Look, I think if it's provoked debate, it's only because other people have jumped in and said that's the wrong thing. That's not what we should be talking about. Sure, let's talk about these issues, but let's not demonise an entire group of people in this country that face regular oppression on a daily basis. So I think for Bill Leak to try and claim the mantle of the great instigator of debate is quite far-fetched at this stage.
I don't think he's trying to shut down debate. He's perfectly happy with debate. He wants debate.
He was very upset that people chose to debate with him.
The people who want to shut down debate are the people who criticised him. They said
But
he
why
shouldn't have said
criticising
it.
an idea shutting down debate, though? Isn't
because
that
they
what
said he
debate
had
is?
no right to say it.
Well,
That's
no,
shutting down debate.
I'm not sure how. I certainly
They are all
haven't said that,
saying
so
it should never
I
have
don't think
been
everyone
said.
is saying that.
No,
I think
the
people are saying that it's a
critics-
racist cartoon,
That
and maybe
is-
the national
that is a-
newspapers shouldn't justify
If you say
publishing
something's
those
racist,
things.
you are saying it should never have been done.
No,
it's like
that's
the,
not true. There's
it's
a
like
difference
the
between
cartoons,
expressing a view and using a platform like that to put forward
the
a racist
people who are
idea.
criticising want him to stop, to not say it. And it's like the Muhammad cartoons. And there are things that we run away from because people are frightened they'll be called racist. This problem has to be seen for what it is. I have spoken with people who run these kind of, not the Dale one, but the other trying to help Aboriginal kids in Northern Territory. It is a work of mission. You have to dedicate your whole life and you get very little support. I would like Gillian Triggs and some of those people who are all off their faces about human rights to go up there and run one of those places for a week. This guy now is threatening to use the media to demean and mock the people who are trying to reform the system. He's manipulative and he is completely out of hand. Okay, give him to Gillian Triggs for life. Let her look after him. But I tell you what, until you actually get down and dirty with this whole problem, you are never going to understand it.
I mean, has Bill Leak gotten down and dirty with this problem?
I don't know, but he's certainly speaking about it the way others are refusing to.
Sure.
Extraordinary. Well, still igniting debate. It was days and days of debate over this cartoon, another one that was released the day after it as well. Great to have you in the studio, Osman, and thank you so much for dropping in.
Thank
Anne
you.
Henderson, always a pleasure to have
Sorry
you
for my fieriness.
Well, that's what this forum is for.
I think Osman and I both want the same outcome.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Yeah.
It's just really a scary thing that we've tolerated for too long.
Thanks so much to both of you for dropping in this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.